Proverbs 15, 13 through 15. A glad heart makes a cheerful face, but by sorrow of heart the spirit is crushed. The heart of him who has understanding seeks knowledge, but the mouths of fools feed on folly. All the days of the afflicted are evil, but the cheerful of heart has a continual feast. Today's topic is recovering from religious trauma, learning how to have fun. And I think I would probably qualify that by saying healthy fun. Learning how to have healthy fun. Have you ever thought about, and I'm directing this more to Christians out there and to my former self. Have you ever thought about the fact that God doesn't laugh much in the Bible? Honestly, the only occurrence I can think of God laughing in the Bible is where he laughs at the calamity of the wicked. There's a verse that says that God laughs at the calamity of the wicked. Basically, the idea is like anyone who rejects him and rejects his way, he will visit calamity upon them, and he takes responsibility for that in the Old Testament. And there's a verse, I forget which chapter it is, I'd have to look it up, but that's the only occurrence I can think of where God laughs. I always thought that was strange. If this is supposed to be the God who created us, right? Why is it that we laugh more than he does? If the Bible is an accurate portrayal of this being, and he's our creator and we're made in his image, why is it that humans are able to laugh more than God and have more fun than God does? At least that we have record of him experiencing. It's a little weird, right? You see a lot of other emotions from God. You see anger, definitely, wrath. You see, I think, frustration. You see regret, sadness. You do see rejoicing, which is different, I think, than laughing or having fun. I don't know, so it could be because of the nature of God, that he's a cosmic being. It could be that he has fun in a different way than we do, which I would get that, But it's interesting, even when he finally, as the story goes, takes on a human body in the form of Jesus, you don't see Jesus laughing at all. There's no record of Jesus laughing. There's not even a mention of Jesus smiling. Why is that? I assume that he did at some point, but why is it we have no record of him smiling? We do have a record of him getting angry, a record of him weeping, being sad. But why not smiling? Is it really that humans are so awful and our sin is so terrible that he just can't bring himself to smile or laugh with us? I don't know. I think that always, even as a Christian, that struck me a little weird. So I think for me, over the last few years, part of my recovery, I guess, for lack of a better word, from some of the religious trauma, and this is all interwoven. So, as I've talked about before, I have legitimate human trauma, like watching my mother die of cancer, then getting sick myself several years later, battling with depression, addictive behaviors. But then you had the ways that the church culture I was in fed into some of that negativity and that depression, and part of that, I think, is the heavily apocalyptic emphasis, like the emphasis on the world's going to get worse before Jesus comes back. Everything's going to end. Everything's just going to get worse and worse. And then finally Jesus will come back and fix it. But things are just going to get worse and worse. And you just think about that too much. And like you're actually looking for things to get worse because you're hoping that that will lead to something better. So there's just... when that gets emphasized a lot, you know, it's not that there isn't any positive side to that. Like you have emphasis on the hard things of life, on, you know, evil that's present in the world. And the catharsis there is you need to run to God for comfort. And I did find comfort in like, okay, I'm told God's in charge of this. I'm told he's going to fix this. But what was a lot harder to do was to actually have fun now. Because I felt like I wasn't allowed to have fun. There was not an explicit command saying, thou shalt not have fun, you know, but it was more of the idea of like, hey, you know, this world's going to end soon. Jesus could come back. There's people dying without him. Why am I here having fun? You know, so I couldn't have fun for very long before my brain would jump in and be like, you shouldn't laugh so much. You shouldn't have so much fun. You need to get serious. You need to be sober-minded, etc., etc. And verses like this one, this is James chapter 4. And I think I've mentioned before that the book of James was one of the very first that I studied on my own at the age of 13. When I first started like actually actively studying the Bible on my own initiative, because I was interested in it. I was 13. And the book of James was one of the first that I studied. I think Acts and James were two of the first. And this verse here, I think is... I'll start back at the beginning of the chapter and kind of go through to it. So James chapter 4. What causes quarrels and what causes fights among you? Is it not this, that your passions are at war within you? You desire and do not have, so you murder. You covet and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and do not receive because you ask wrongly to spend it on your passions. You adulterous people, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. Or do you suppose it is to no purpose that the Scripture says he yearns jealously over the Spirit that he has made to dwell in us? But he gives more grace. Therefore it says, God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. Submit yourselves, therefore, to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Be wretched, and mourn, and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning, and your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will exalt you. So you think about, and as I've spoken a lot about, I'm talking about my personal interactions with the Bible, the way I internalized a lot of these verses. So I think both consciously and subconsciously I associated humility and submission to God with seriousness, with sober-mindedness, with, kind of bowing down, like... I mean, that is kind of the idea of worship and a bowing down. You are humiliating yourself before, a powerful being or one who is more powerful than you. You're submitting yourself, you're bowing down, And you see this, it's interesting, you see this in the animal kingdom as well. Like even amongst, for instance, chimpanzees who are, male-dominant societies. There's typically an alpha male who heads up the clan, and one of the ways that the males under him in the hierarchy demonstrate their submission to his leadership is they will bow down and raise their hand up like this. And you see it. Like, and, we humans do it too. However you look at that, whether you look at that from an evolutionary standpoint and that we are also primates and that's why we also engage in submission displays, or whether you look at it as all creatures are made in the image of God, so it makes sense that there would be hierarchies amongst both the humans and the other animals, and there would be submission displays. Whichever way you look at it, it's something we have in common with primates. As well, dogs do this. One of the reasons we're able to domesticate dogs is that they run in packs. Like they're descended from wolves, as far as we know, or something like a wolf. And wolves run in packs, and there's usually an alpha wolf. And one of the similar, like the dog's submission display, they will get down on their forelegs and bow down. So if you've noticed, if you've had a dog, which I have, if they recognize you as their owner, as the alpha male in their pack, you will see them give you a submission display from time to time. It's interesting. And sometimes play comes in, like my dog would do that before we would play, which is really interesting. So I don't know how play exactly comes into that. That's interesting too, like the other animals play, as best we can tell. Dolphins do it, dogs do it, some of the primates do it. Like I've seen videos of monkeys there doesn't seem to be any other purpose than having fun, the way we would normally describe it, like just taking turns, jumping into a pond. Like they're not hunting for anything, they're not grabbing fish, like there doesn't seem to be any other reason than having fun. And something I've learned over time is that I think laughter, and this is where I would agree with Solomon, like laughter is like medicine to the heart. It really does good. And I think when we humans have fun together, when we watch a comedy together, or something funny happens while we're out with another person and we laugh together, we make each other laugh, I'm talking about especially when it's like those deep belly laughs, or when you laugh so much you start to cry. Like there is a form of bonding that happens, relational bonding. And I've noticed for myself, and I think for others, like it breaks the ice, so to speak. It lets down barriers and enables us to have more meaningful conversations with one another. It enables us to get serious, and it enables us to engage with our empathy more, to feel what the other person is feeling. I think pastors have some knowledge of this, because I've seen pastors use jokes, as a means to get people to let their guard down, not in a negative sense, but just like get them to let their guard down so that they're willing to listen, and hear something that can be hard. Comedians, honestly, are a good example of this. Like, going all the way back to like court jesters, like they would use satire as a means to make a political point to the king. One of the few people who could do so, still potentially at the risk of getting their head chopped off, if you will, but they had the courage to, and they used humor because that kind of diffuses the tension a bit, and yet sometimes you can diffuse the tension and then stick in the knife, if you will. But even just pure fun, like dancing. In my tradition, that was something we didn't do much of. Like, it was generally viewed as worldly. It would have fit into the category that James talks about, loving the world, particularly the more sensual forms of dancing. So that I think probably a lot of the husbands and wives, who grew up in the traditions that I grew up in, didn't even dance with each other. Because it felt weird, or it reminded them maybe of dances they had when they were in high school or junior high that were more, I don't know. There's various reasons for it. But I didn't feel free myself to just have fun. Like, as I got older, like, the only time I felt free to dance was by myself in my room, because there was shame attached with the entire frame of dancing and having fun. Gradually over the years, like I've opened up about, honestly, dating my wife, and knowing that she enjoyed dancing, and like having friends over the years who were able to enjoy that. And then finally, I was at someone's wedding. Probably been 5-6 years ago now. Probably about 6 years ago now. And I danced in public for the first time. They had music going on, and I let it go, and I had fun, and that was so healing. Like, to do that out in public for the first time, and then as I've gotten older and have kids, we have dance parties. We just have fun, me and my girls. We'll put on some cheerful, like, dance music, pop music, like Happy from the Despicable Me movie, or something like that, something fun. Can't Stop the Feeling, Justin Timberlake did that for the Trolls movie, stuff like that. Just really fun. It's not overly sexualized or anything like that. It's just really fun. It's energetic. We just dance and we have fun, and I love that. I love doing it with my girls. I'm like, so what's inappropriate? What would be inappropriate for adults doing that too? So it's just strange that you don't see much, very little humor. Like, when there's any humor in the Bible, it is pretty much along the lines of, like, laughing at the wicked, laughing at the calamity of those. And it's weird, like, you have that verse, but then you have another verse that says that God takes no joy in the destruction of the wicked. So you're like, wait a minute. Over here it says he's laughing at the calamity of the wicked, and over here it's saying he takes no joy in that. Like, how does that compute? It doesn't. So that's confusing. So I think I felt uncertain and unsure. Like, can I actually have fun and it be okay? And I think I've learned that that's really important. And I think if there is a creator, I think that, and if indeed we are made in his image, I think laughter and fun are a really important part, and play a really important part. And it saddens me that Christian tradition and the Bible doesn't reflect that. It's sad, and I think that has, particularly among the fundamentalist traditions where you try to take the Bible very literally, and where there's a strong emphasis on apocalypticism and on the end times, and this has no bearing on whether those prophecies are going to be fulfilled or not. I'm just talking about if you emphasize that a lot at your church, it's just like this dark cloud that's, there's a silver lining to it, i.e. Jesus coming back, but there's still this dark cloud constantly hanging over your church culture, if you will, if you emphasize that too much. It was refreshing in many ways to be a part of Presbyterian tradition, who hold a more covenant theology, kind of a more, some of you will know what this means, but post-millennial or amillennial perspective, where they actually believe that God is establishing his kingdom on the earth, and that things are going to get better in preparation for Jesus coming. And as such, they feel that there's value in investing in the culture around, not just as a means to fight the good fight, to fight spiritual warfare, but no, to actually make the lives of other people better. And to, I think one of my former pastors used the phrase, make an outpost of the kingdom. Build an outpost of the kingdom, if you will. And the more outposts of the kingdom there are, the better the world will be until Jesus comes back. So it's like flips it on its head, and it doesn't deny the fact that there's pain and that there's suffering, but it's more hopeful in the present. It's not just hoping for a final day when Jesus will come back and fix everything. It's hopeful that he can change things now, So it was helpful to me to be a part of a tradition like that for a few years. It's helped me relax a bit. And the first service I attended, first Presbyterian service I ever attended, it was a going away party for their pastor. So they had a big meal. They did have a sermon, of course, because it's church. But then towards the end, they had a dance, and they were playing Beatles music, of all things. And I'm like, ooh, this is different. I suspected that a lot of Baptists I knew probably listened to the Beatles at home when they, but if the pastor were to come over, they probably would turn it off, And if they were dancing to the Beatles music at home and the pastor were to come, because, he's like, in some way, God's representative, somehow, we got to get serious. We got to turn this Beatles music off and not dance to it. And here at a church service, there's people out dancing. Something about that is really beautiful, I think. And I think having fun is really important. It's an important part of human bonding, and it enables us to have more honest and more open and more vulnerable conversations with one another, because it breaks down those walls of fear and shame. And I will add something I was not really given permission to do in the tradition I grew up in, and I'm not just trying to bash my tradition. Please hear me when I say that. There are a lot of wonderful, beautiful things about, the emphasis on servanthood, on caring for other people. I've said this before. That's really valuable. And I'm really glad that I was taught to care and to look out for the needs of other humans. I'm really glad for that. So please don't hear me just bashing my tradition. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just expressing how some elements of it interacted with my life and my psychology, and how they affected me. The way I received them affected me negatively. And I believe I've observed it the same in others. So I think what you choose to emphasize in your tradition has a tremendous impact. What you choose to emphasize from the Bible has a tremendous impact on your church culture and on the life of the people that are in your church. So it behooves, us to be careful, But I've just learned that humor and fun is really good, and it's really important. And kind of in honor of that, like you've probably noticed the camera shaking around a bit. I did not have it on the stand this time because I am actually in a tree. I have climbed up in a tree. Just having a bit of fun with this one. So yeah, I just think humor is really important. So take fun seriously. Go have some. I'm not saying don't be mindful of other people. Like, if you're listening to a song that isn't a problem for you, this is where I think Paul had some meaningful advice in Romans 14. Like the idea that be mindful of how what you listen to or what you eat, or just what you do affects the other people around you. Like if it's going to trigger someone else's trauma, it's going to cause them pain. If they struggle with, like, for instance, just to bring it to bear, like alcohol addiction. Like I personally have found the freedom to drink beer, wine, liquor. I'm careful. I'm very careful with it. And like, honestly, and particularly in social situations, like, drinking can really help you connect better with one another. It's something similar to humor, where it breaks down some of those walls. It helps you relax. As long as you're careful with it and you don't go overboard, it can be really helpful in social interactions. Now, that being said, if I'm hanging out with someone who I know is a recovering alcoholic, I'm not going to drink around that person, because I know that could literally, and I'm not joking when I say this, that could kill that person. Like if they go on a binge after we hang out, it could literally kill them. If they were a serious enough alcoholic, it could literally kill them or do serious damage. So be mindful of other people. That's important. But it doesn't mean that you cannot enjoy that yourself if you're able to do it, with self-control and with moderation, if you will. But be mindful of other people around you, So yeah, have fun, but, take it seriously, but have fun. Have a dance party. Watch a comedy together, laugh, have fun. I think that's important. So with that, I'm going to sign off today.